Alafia. I'm Amma Robin, humble host and seer storyteller at You Ain't Imagining This, a Black storytelling sanctuary. By the way, let me wish you Akwaba. Welcome to the first episode of this Black Healing Summer Session. This is a season-long journey into rest, release, and renewal. This summer, we're doing something a little different. We are slowing down together. Over the next 7 weeks, you'll hear stories, reflections, and comforting moments created to help you lay your burdens down bit by bit and remember your own humanity. You know, healing isn't something you earn. It's something you deserve every single day. Here's how this arc will follow. We're going to start by releasing, by naming and letting go of the weights we've been carrying. Then we'll move into reflection, seeing ourselves with new gentleness. And then we'll close in renewal, honoring the right to rest without apology. Today, we're beginning with release. This story is called The Day I Let the Burdens Fall. And it's about a moment when everything I'd been holding on to finally became too heavy to ignore. You may want to listen for 3 things. It's up to you. The quiet decision to stop proving and to start breathing. The power of ancestral memory, even in a corporate parking lot. And third, the small rituals that can turn an ordinary day into a turning point. I have only 2 requests for you, my fam. Please, come as you are and take what you need. And if you're here today, this is what I know about you. I can be wrong and you can correct me, but this is what I'm thinking. You value your time. And you carry burdens that you're ready to put down. If someone shared this episode with you, I know that they really, really care about you. And so do I. If this story resonates, I invite you to subscribe, share it with someone who needs it, just like they shared it with you, and make this your space, a place to come home to yourself. All right, let's start with the story. And remember to stick around after, because we're going to go beyond the story. And that means we go deeper and we get real. Let's get started. I didn't plan for it to happen on that day. I realize we can't always plan these things. It was a Thursday, just after sunrise. The moon was still visible, almost felt like it was waiting for me. I've always felt connected to the moon, to its energy, sifting through the month in ways that I can't fully explain. I don't feel the need to explain it or understand it anymore. I've just learned to trust it and to lean into that pull when I need it most. And it turned out that day was today. I was sitting in the car outside of my office building, gripping the steering wheel with the same tension I used to think of as ambition. I'm a senior project architect at a firm that loves to remind me how diverse it is. They trot my face out on the website. They call me a role model. They sing my praises at department lunches. But when it comes time to back me up in meetings or to defend me when my ideas get re-explained by someone else and then they get reassigned to someone else, they fall quiet. That morning, I felt it in my chest, tight, restless, fluttering, like the weight of proving myself had finally grown too big to fit behind my ribs. I looked up at the almost full moon fading into the pale sky and thought, I'm tired. I'm so tired of carrying all this. And the burden wasn't just in the bias, though that was huge, but it was in the constant self-monitoring. The way I rehearsed how to say something just assertive enough to be respected, but still soft enough not to be called difficult. The way I watched my husband shrink his voice in his own office to seem less threatening. The way I'd come home and feel like a peeled nerve, unable to rest, but too exhausted to speak. And the way I swallowed the ache of being the only one in the room, every room. The burden of being the first or the only was a weight I carried into every meeting, every project, every performance review. No matter how many degrees I earned or how many times I proved my skill, there was always a question mark behind my competence, an unspoken doubt that clung to me just because I was Black in a predominantly white space. It was the quiet, constant reminder that I wasn't just representing myself. I was carrying the entire community's reputation on my back. And that's a heavy burden to carry. That morning, I told myself the truth. I can't keep holding all of it. I turned off the engine and just sat there. I let the radio play a song that reminded me of summer cookouts. Frankie Beverly and Mays. My father used to play it on Sunday afternoons. Kendrick Lamar and Doechii. My son blasted that one last weekend. I had insisted on hearing Lauryn Hill and Little Sims. I needed them. But each of us needed to hear the artist that spoke to our hearts and soul. And so we did. I really miss family cookouts from my childhood. In my college days, I enjoyed them even more. Everyone was there. There was lots of laughter, friendly competition, and knowing that I could take off the mask. This morning, I could almost smell the charcoal smoke, feel the freedom of walking barefoot on the grass, the way my mother would say, "Baby, you don't have to earn your place here. You already belong." She knew what I was going through at work, and she knew that I needed that reminder. So I closed my eyes and did something I'd never done before on a work day. I decided to set some of my burdens down. Not forever, just for today. I breathed in. On the exhale, I imagined letting go of the burden of perfection. The next breath, I released the fear that any mistakes would be proof that I didn't deserve to be here. Another breath, and I let go of the shame that clung to my shoulders like a damp jacket. And one more breath, and I set down the tiredness that comes from carrying too many unspoken expectations. It wasn't a ceremony. It wasn't dramatic. It was a choice. It was a release. Unplanned, unrehearsed, overdue. But, as my great-grandmother used to say, right on time. I walked into that office feeling lighter, though I don't think that anyone else could tell. And I went straight to work. I spoke up at meetings. I spoke up again when my ideas were dismissed. When a client assumed I was the assistant, I corrected him. Calm, steady, again. My heart didn't race like it normally would have, and my breath didn't get shallow or quicken as in the past. Today was different. I was different. At lunch, I called my friend Kinja. She's a public defender, another Black woman, also holding too much. She told me she started her own practice of releasing the burdens. Every Friday night, she lights a candle, sprinkles sage into a bowl of water, and as she thinks about her burdens from the week, she whispers, "I release this. This no longer belongs to me." "That's beautiful," I told her. I've known her for years, but I never knew that she practiced any kind of mindfulness techniques. "It helps," she says, "because if we don't choose to let it fall, it will bury us." I sat there thinking how many of us are out there carrying all of this alone, like it's our private assignment to be unbreakable. I wondered what might change if we actually named what was heavy, if we let each other see the strain. Maybe the weight wouldn't feel so impossible if we remembered that it was never meant to be ours alone. Maybe the real healing starts when we open our hands and say, "Here's what I'm holding. Can you help me set this down?" After work, I didn't rush home. I drove to Lake Merritt and sat on a bench by the water, watched the ripples catch the last bits of sunlight. There were families everywhere, kids running, couples holding hands, elders wrapped in blankets, and some people just sitting alone, basking on their own for the moment. I felt connected to them in a way I hadn't in months. Black people being, laughing, connecting, resting, not performing for anyone, and not wearing the mask. Then I remembered the poem that had been pulling at me all day, "The Mask" by Paul Laurence Dunbar. I only remember part of it. It says, "We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile, and mouth with myriad subtleties." He wrote that poem as a protest in 1897 and still applies today. Because today, I refuse to wear the mask, and I felt lighter without it. I thought again about my great-grandmother, how she used to say that freedom isn't just marching and fighting. Sometimes it's the quiet refusal to be controlled. So I let myself just sit and rest. I thought about the moon again and how it waxes and wanes, gets bigger and smaller, brighter and dimmer, how it shows up and hides, and how it never asks permission to take up the sky. And that night when I went home to my husband, he asked if I was okay. And I said, "Today, I put some things down." He looked closely at me and nodded like he understood, because he did. We sat together on the porch until the moon came back into view, bright and certain. I know tomorrow I'll pick some of it up again because the world hasn't changed overnight. All my burdens haven't magically disappeared, but I also know that I don't have to carry all of it all the time. And neither do you. Asante Sana, thanks for staying with me. I am so glad that we're here together to go beyond the story. By the way, this story just came to life for me. It really practically wrote itself. I hope that you'll let me share a little more about why this story matters so much to me and why it isn't just fiction, but a reflection of so many real moments in my life. As a Black woman, I have been expected to carry it all, to hold everyone together, to be excellent, to be unshakable, to be strong. Actually, to be invincible. And to do all of this without complaints, without rest, without getting tired, and without needing help. And for a long time, I did exactly that. I carried it all. And eventually, it did take a toll that I couldn't ignore. My migraines started, and they lasted for days. I've had many sleepless nights, and I've had that hollow feeling of aloneness that can kind of creep in when I was holding too much for too long. When I look back, I know exactly where I learned this way of being. I learned it from my mother. She was often the first Black woman in most of the white corporate spaces that she entered. She was often the only Black person in those white corporate spaces. She carried a lot, too much, raising children, managing the family. At work, she was fixing other people's messes, taking the blame for their messes, feeling the stares, being constantly on call. She was wearing the mask. I'll get to that in a minute. And my mother learned it from her grandmother, Big Mama, that's what we called her, who was born just after enslavement and still expected to do it all, to be it all, and to never show any cracks. This burden is generational, but so is the wisdom to put it down. One thing I've discovered is that balancing the burdens is impossible, not by ignoring them, but by making space for joy, for culture, for community, for love and laughter, even in the middle of the struggle. And that is how I started and why I started creating my dopamine breaks. You know, dopamine, that feel-good hormone, I would give small, rewarding moments, like when I was playing music or doing movement or experiencing laughter or stillness. And that helped me to release some of the heaviness before it buried me. And I do these things every day. Not for a long time, just for a few minutes, but it really does make a difference because the burdens do build up every day. Slowly, that water starts to slowly boil. And that's why I created the story about the sounds of the Black cookout, because in Black spaces around my people, I feel safe. I feel unburdened. I feel human. W.E.B. Du Bois talked about this, about the humanness that is so often denied to us as Black folk. It is human to feel weighed down by what we carry. It's human to feel uplifted by what we share. But Black people haven't been privileged in predominantly white spaces to have our humanness recognized or honored. And this brings me back to the poem that I mentioned in the story, The Mask, by Paul Laurence Dunbar. He was born to previously enslaved parents, and he became one of the most prominent African American poets of his time in the 1890s. We Wear the Mask was first published in Dunbar's memoir of poetry in 1895. Well, it could have been 1897. The date's a little fuzzy for me. But it does speak to me now in the same way that it spoke to Dunbar more than a century ago. And so I'm going to take a second just to read the full poem to you. It's only 3 stanzas, but it means a lot. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but O great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but oh, the day is vile, beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. Wow, that poem is powerful, and I think about it a lot. It comes up to me a lot, and I think there's a lot for me that I carry with the mask. And yes, I do believe we wear the mask. And that's why it's so important to take steps to lay our burdens down and to help each other to do the same. I'm going to repeat that because, yes, it's about us, but it's also about helping each other to lay the burdens down. And to remember that the strength of family, community, and liberation is not just about survival, it is also belonging. And you ain't imagining this. Now, if you can, take a moment right now, just a few breaths, to do your own release. So let's inhale deeply. And as you exhale, imagine your burdens slipping off your shoulders. Imagine your burdens slipping off your shoulders. Feel your body getting lighter, even if it's just a little. Feel that lightness. And repeat this for as many times as you need throughout the day. And if you want to keep coming back to this practice, this space is here for you. This is your sanctuary, a place to remember that you are human, you are held, and you don't have to carry it all alone. Well, I think that's enough for today. But don't worry, we're going to keep meeting and discussing and sharing and supporting each other. So please share this episode with someone that you love. Invite them into this sanctuary with you, because together we can all breathe a little easier, and together we can keep letting the burdens fall. I'm Amma Robin, and I hope that this episode was a healing and uplifting journey for you. Keep checking in here for more Black empowerment experiences, and remember to come as you are and take what you need. The porch light is always on for you. You're not alone, and you ain't imagining this. Ashe, community.